The alarm system started screaming at exactly 0400 station time. Vexthor's 4 eyes snapped open in his sleep pod. His antennae twitched with confusion. In 30 years of working at Sentinel's Eye monitoring station, he had never heard that sound before. He rushed to the main control room, his 6 legs moving fast across the metal floor. Other crew members were already there, all looking scared and confused. The screens showed nothing but red warnings. Every single sensor on the station was going crazy. "What is happening?" Vexthor demanded. His voice clicked and buzzed through his translator device. "We don't know, sir," replied Kelleth, a young engineer with blue skin and 3 fingers on each hand. "Every sensor activated at once. Radiation detectors, quantum scanners, dimensional monitors, everything, but they're not showing us what triggered them." Vexthor moved to the main console. His trained eyes scanned the data streams. Nothing made sense. The numbers were too high, too strange. This wasn't like any stellar event he had ever seen. It wasn't a supernova. It wasn't a black hole forming. It wasn't a wormhole opening. Could it be a weapon? Asked Trillax, the station's security officer. Her scales reflected the red warning lights. "No," Vexthor said slowly. "Weapons have signatures we recognize." "This is different." Dr. Renna floated over to them. She was a cloud of gas held together by a containment field, one of the few species that existed without a solid body. Her voice came from a speaker attached to her field generator. "I've been analyzing the patterns," she said. "This isn't random chaos. There's structure in it, organization, like a language but not one we can understand." That made everyone stop and stare at her. "You mean it's communication?" Vexthor asked. "Maybe. Or maybe it's something we don't have words for yet." Vexthor made a decision. "Activate the deep space triangulation array. I want to know where this is coming from." The crew worked fast. Ships and stations across 3 sectors started sharing data. The Galactic Council had built this network to detect threats early. Now all of it focused on finding the source of this strange frequency. Hours passed. The signal didn't stop. It didn't get weaker. If anything, it was getting stronger. Vexthor hadn't eaten or rested. He stood at the main screen watching the triangulation program work. Behind him, his crew whispered nervously to each other. Some of them had called their families. "Some of them prayed to their gods, sir," Kelleth said quietly. "I found something in the archives. This frequency, it's been here before." "What do you mean?" "It was there in our background readings. Very faint. For the last 60 years, maybe longer. We thought it was just cosmic noise, but now it's 1,000,000 times stronger." Vexthor felt his blood run cold. Something had been broadcasting for decades and they never noticed. Now it was screaming loud enough to overwhelm their most powerful sensors. "The triangulation is complete," Dr. Renna announced. Everyone gathered around the main display. A star map appeared, showing their position and millions of other stars. A bright red line traced from their station toward the source. The line pointed to the outer edge of the galaxy, to a region marked as Zone 7J. Vexthor knew that designation. "No," he whispered. "What's in Zone 7J?" Trillax asked. Vexthor pulled up the file with shaking hands. A yellow star system. Catalogued 200 years ago. 9 planets. The 3rd planet has life. Primitive life. Pre-spaceflight. "But that's impossible," Kelleth said. "Primitive species don't have technology that could create this kind of signal." "They weren't supposed to," Vexthor agreed. He zoomed in on the file. There were old images of the planet, mostly blue with green and brown land masses. White clouds. The file had a species classification. Humans. Status pre-contact. Quarantine in effect. Humans, Dr. Renna said softly. "I remember reading about them in xenobiology studies. They were violent, always fighting each other. No telepathy, no empathy fields, no natural consciousness connection. The council decided to watch and wait." "How long ago was that file updated?" Trillax asked. Vexthor checked. His heart sank. 197 years ago. The room went silent. Almost 2 centuries without checking on them. Anything could have happened in that time. "Send emergency alerts to the council," Vexthor ordered. "All frequencies. Maximum priority. Tell them the signal is coming from the human world. Tell them we need ships here now." "Should we tell them what we think it is?" Kelleth asked. "We don't know what it is," Vexthor said. "That's what scares me." As Kelleth sent the messages, Vexthor stared at the image of the blue planet. Somewhere down there something had changed. The primitive humans had done something that made every advanced sensor in 3 sectors lose control. He pulled up more data on humans. The old reports called them creative but dangerous, emotional but clever. They had split the atom before leaving their own planet. They had created artificial intelligence while still bound by gravity. What had they created now? The frequency pulsed through the station again. This time Vexthor felt it in his mind. Just for a second. Like someone was screaming and laughing and crying all at once right inside his thoughts. Dr. Renna made a sound like wind through metal pipes. Did everyone feel that? They all nodded. Even Trillex, who had natural mental shields, looked shaken. Whatever they're broadcasting, Dr. Renna said, it's not just affecting our machines. It's affecting us. Vexthor looked at the planet on his screen. The humans had no idea what they were doing. They couldn't know that the entire galaxy could hear them now. He just hoped the galaxy would be merciful when it answered. Commander Zelith stood on the bridge of the warship Talon's Grace, watching the yellow star grow larger on the view screen. Behind her ship, 15 other vessels from different council species followed in formation. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, all heading toward a world that was supposed to be harmless. Her feathers ruffled with unease. Zelith had served in the council fleet for 40 years. She had seen wars, first contacts, and stellar disasters. But she had never seen the council move this fast. The emergency alert from Sentinel's Eye had reached High Command only 6 days ago. Now they were already here at the edge of the human system. Distance to the 3rd planet? She asked. 4 light hours, Commander, replied her navigator. A being made of liquid crystal who poured himself across the control panel. Maintain position. Begin long-range scans. The science officer, a massive creature with too many arms, worked at his station. Scanning now. The frequency is definitely coming from this system. It's everywhere, Commander. Like the whole solar system is vibrating with it. Zelith felt it too. A pressure in her mind that shouldn't be there. She had mental training. Shields that protected her thoughts. But this frequency was pushing against those shields like water against a dam. What are the archives saying about these humans? She asked. Another officer pulled up the old files. First contact survey conducted 197 years ago. The humans were observed from orbit for 6 months. Classification, intelligent but primitive. Technology level, early industrial age. No space travel. No energy weapons. High violence levels. Recommendation, quarantine until they either achieve peaceful space travel or destroy themselves. And we just left them alone for 2 centuries. That's protocol, Commander. We can't interfere with pre-spaceflight species. We can only watch, Zelith clicked her beak in frustration. Did anyone actually watch them? Silence on the bridge. She knew the answer. The galaxy was huge. The Council had thousands of pre-spaceflight species to monitor. Most stayed primitive for centuries or killed themselves with their own weapons. The humans were just another file in a vast database. Bring up current scans of their planet, Zelith ordered. The screen changed. The blue planet appeared, rotating slowly. Zelith saw lights on the dark side. Lots of lights. Cities, she realized. Huge cities covering large parts of the continents. Magnify, she said. The image zoomed in. Structures, roads, vehicles, and something else. Things moving in orbit around the planet. They have satellites, the science officer said, sounding surprised. Hundreds of them. And space stations. They're in space, Commander. But no FTL drives? No, nothing capable of faster than light travel. But they have fusion reactors. Advanced computers. Artificial intelligence. Quantum communications. The science officer paused. They advanced fast. Very fast. Zelith studied the planet. 200 years ago, these humans were barely able to fly. Now they had orbital infrastructure and fusion power. That was unusual. Most species took much longer. What about the frequency? She asked. The science officer's many hands moved across multiple screens at once. It's getting stronger as we approach. Commander, I'm reading something strange. The frequency isn't coming from a single source. It's coming from the entire planet. Like billions of small transmitters all broadcasting at once. Billions. Yes, spread across all the continents. Concentrated in the cities, but present everywhere humans live. Dr. Cretan, the fleet's chief biologist, stepped forward. She was reptilian, with scales that changed color based on her mood. Right now they were dark purple, which meant she was deeply troubled. Commander, she said, I need to show you something. May I use the main screen? Zalith nodded. Kraton brought up a different display. It showed wave patterns rising and falling in complex rhythms. This is what the frequency looks like when we analyze it, Kraton explained. Now look at this. She pulled up another pattern. It was similar but much smaller and quieter. This is a brainwave scan. Neural activity from a conscious mind, Zalith stared. The patterns weren't exactly the same, but they were close. Too close to be coincidence? Are you saying the frequency is thought patterns? Zalith asked. Consciousness itself? Amplified to an impossible degree, yes. I believe that's exactly what it is. The bridge went silent. Everyone was trying to understand what that meant. But humans aren't telepathic, one of the officers said. The old surveys confirmed it. No psychic abilities at all. That's one reason they were rated non-threatening. They weren't telepathic 200 years ago, Kraton agreed. But something changed. Zalith felt the pressure in her mind again. She closed her eyes and concentrated. For just a moment, she let her shields drop slightly. The sensation was overwhelming. Voices. Millions of voices. Billions. Not words exactly, but feelings, emotions, thoughts. Joy and anger and fear and love and hatred all mixed together. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. She raised her shields quickly, breathing hard. Is anyone else sensing this? She asked. Around the bridge, the telepathic species nodded. Even those with only weak mental abilities looked uncomfortable. It's like standing next to an explosion, said the navigator. Except the explosion never stops. Dr. Kraton's scales shifted to dark red. Commander, all council species have something in common. Those of us who achieved space travel, I mean. We all developed psychic abilities early in our evolution. Telepathy, empathy, mental bonding. We learned to sense each other's thoughts. Yes, everyone knows this, Zalith said impatiently. And because we could sense each other's thoughts, we learned control. We built mental shields. We made our thoughts private. It's basic childhood training for every species in the council. What's your point, Doctor? My point is that humans didn't evolve psychic abilities. They're consciousness blind. They can't hear each other's thoughts naturally. So they never learned to shield them. For their entire history, every human mind has been broadcasting at full power. But no one could hear it. Not even other humans, Zalith began to understand. Until now. Until now, Kraton confirmed. They built something. Some kind of technology that connects their minds. An artificial telepathic network. And because they don't know how to shield themselves, because they never needed to, they're broadcasting everything. Billions of completely unshielded, incredibly loud human minds, all connected and transmitting at once. That's impossible, someone whispered. That much uncontrolled psychic energy could affect every sensitive species within light years, Kraton finished. Yes, it already is. Zalith turned back to the view screen looking at the blue planet. Down there, billions of humans lived their lives completely unaware that their thoughts were screaming across space. Unaware that they had just announced their existence to the entire galaxy in the loudest way possible. Get me a secure channel to High Command, Zalith ordered. Tell them what we found. Tell them we need xenopsychologists, consciousness experts, and... She paused. And tell them to prepare the council for an emergency session. We need to decide what to do about humanity. Fast. Because Zalith knew one terrible truth. The galaxy had rules about species that couldn't control their consciousness. Those rules were old and harsh, and they usually ended with extinction. Sarah Chen rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the code on her screen. It was 2 a.m., but she didn't care. This was the most important project of her life. Maybe the most important project in human history. The Global Consciousness Network. GCN for short. 5 years of work. Thousands of scientists, trillions of dollars. And tomorrow they would finally connect the last region. Tomorrow every human on Earth would be part of the network. Her phone buzzed. A message from her colleague, David. Can't sleep either? This is really happening. Sarah smiled and typed back. Nervous and excited. Did you ever think we'd actually finish it? No, David replied. But here we are. 8.7 billion people, all connected. One shared consciousness. Well, sort of. Sarah leaned back in her chair. The GCN wasn't magic. It was technology. Quantum neural interfaces that linked human brains through a vast computer network. People would still be individuals. They would still have private thoughts. But they could also choose to share. To feel what others felt. To think together it would end isolation. That was the dream. No one would ever be truly alone again. Her screen flickered. Strange. Sarah frowned and ran a diagnostic. Everything looked normal. Probably just tired eyes playing tricks on her. Across the planet in Geneva, Dr. Miranis studied the data with growing horror. She had arrived on Earth 3 days ago with Commander Zelith's investigation team. They came in secret using stealth technology to hide their small scout ship. The Council needed to know what humanity had done before making first contact. Now Miranis understood, and she was terrified. She had spent her life studying consciousness. Her species, the Quentar, were natural empaths. They felt emotions like humans felt temperature. It was just part of existing. And like all Council species, they learned to control it from childhood. But humans were different. So different it was almost beautiful. "Commander," she said into her communicator, "I need to present my findings immediately." 20 minutes later, she stood in the scout ship's briefing room. Commander Zelith sat across from her, along with 3 other senior officers. "Tell us what you've learned, Doctor," Zelith said. Miranis activated the holographic display. An image of the human brain appeared, glowing with neural activity. "This is a human mind," she began. "Completely isolated. No natural telepathy. No empathy field. No consciousness connection to other humans whatsoever. For their entire evolution, humans have been alone inside their own heads." She pulled up another image. This one showed thousands of brains, all connected by glowing lines. 3 days ago, they activated something they call the Global Consciousness Network. It's artificial telepathy, created through quantum neural technology. Every human is now connected to this network. "We know this," one of the officers said impatiently. "Why is it causing the frequency?" Miranis took a breath. "Because humans don't know how to shield their thoughts. Let me explain. When my people evolved empathy, we also evolved control. If we didn't, we would go insane feeling everyone's emotions all the time. The same is true for every telepathic species. Mental shields develop alongside mental abilities. It's survival." She zoomed in on a single human brain in the network. Humans never needed shields. They were never connected before. So their minds broadcast at full power, completely raw and unfiltered. Now take that broadcast and multiply it by 8.7 billion. All connected. All transmitting. All completely unaware they're doing it. Zelith's feathers stood up. 8.7 billion unshielded minds? Yes, and human consciousness is intense, uniquely so. Because they evolved without telepathy. They developed other things. Powerful emotions. Incredible creativity. Complex contradictory thoughts. They feel everything so strongly because they never had to worry about broadcasting those feelings to others. Miranis pulled up a comparison chart. "Look at this. On the left, the average emotional intensity of a Quentar mind. On the right, a human mind. The difference was shocking. The human reading was 10 times higher." "They feel more than we do?" asked an officer. "They feel the same things. But louder, stronger, without filters. A human experiencing joy feels it with complete intensity. Same with sadness, anger, love, fear. Everything is turned up to maximum because there's no evolutionary reason to keep it quiet." She paused. "Now imagine 8.7 billion of those intense, unshielded minds all connected and broadcasting. That's what's creating the frequency. That's what every sensitive species within light years is feeling. Raw human consciousness, amplified through technology they built without understanding the consequences." The room was silent. "They don't even know they're doing this?" Zelith asked. "No, to them the network is working perfectly. They can share thoughts and feelings with each other. They think it's contained to Earth. They have no idea they're broadcasting into space. How could they? They can't detect consciousness naturally. They're completely blind to it." One of the officers spoke up. "This is a disaster. We need to shut down their network." "We can't," Miranis said. "It's completely decentralized. Billions of individual receivers. Thousands of quantum satellites. Even if we wanted to destroy it, we'd have to destroy their entire technological infrastructure." "Then what do we do?" Miranis displayed one more image. It was from the Council archives, thousands of years old. "There was another species like this," she said quietly, "long before any of us were born. The Vrentok. They were consciousness loud like humans. They disrupted telepathic species across their entire sector. The Council tried to teach them control, but they couldn't learn fast enough. Their broadcasts caused pain, madness, even death in sensitive species." "What happened to them?" Zelith asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. The council decided they were too dangerous to exist. They were removed, all of them. It's one of the darkest moments in council history, but the laws created afterward are still in effect. Any species that broadcasts uncontrolled consciousness on this scale is classified as a psychic hazard. And the penalty for being a psychic hazard? Quarantine at minimum, forced sterilization of the population, or complete elimination if they can't be contained. The room fell into heavy silence. Miranis looked at each of them. I need to tell you something else. I've been studying human culture through their networks, their art, their music, their literature, their history, and I've been experiencing their consciousness directly, despite the pain it causes me. Why would you do that? An officer asked. Because I needed to know what we'd be destroying. Miranis's voice was thick with emotion. Humans are remarkable. Yes, they're loud. Yes, they're chaotic. But their consciousness is also beautiful. They think in ways we never could. They feel things we've learned to suppress. They create art that makes no sense but touches something deep inside you anyway. They're brilliant and terrible and contradictory and alive in a way I've never seen before. She looked directly at Commander Zelith. If we destroy them, we won't just be removing a psychic hazard. We'll be committing genocide against a species that's unique in the galaxy, maybe unique in the universe. Zelith stood slowly. I need to report this to the council. They'll need to decide. What will you recommend? Miranis asked. Zelith was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I don't know yet. But I do know one thing. We need to make first contact. Soon. Before the military faction decides to act without waiting for debate. In her apartment, Sarah Chen finally closed her laptop. Tomorrow would change everything. She just had no idea how right she was. The council chamber was the largest room Sarah Chen had ever seen. It was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 60 different alien species sat in those seats, and every single one of them was staring at her. 3 days ago, the alien ships had revealed themselves. The entire world had panicked. Then Commander Zelith had sent a message in perfect English, asking to meet with Earth's leaders and the creators of the GCN. Now Sarah stood on the central platform with 5 other humans, facing the most powerful government in the galaxy. Speak, commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator they'd given Sarah felt strange on her ear, but it worked perfectly. She cleared her throat. We didn't know, she said. We had no idea anyone else was out there. We didn't know we were broadcasting. We're sorry for any harm we caused. Sorry. The voice belonged to a creature that looked like a giant insect. Your frequency has caused pain to billions. Telepathic species cannot sleep. Empaths are going mad. You are disrupting communications across 3 sectors. And you're sorry? Sarah felt her face burn with shame and anger. We said we're sorry. We didn't do it on purpose. How are we supposed to know? We can't hear thoughts. That, said a different voice, softer and sad, is precisely the problem. A being that looked like it was made of water flowed down to the platform. Sarah recognized her. Dr. Miranis. She had been the first to make real contact to explain what humanity had accidentally done. The council must understand, Miranis said, addressing the chamber. Humans are unique. They evolved intelligence without any psychic ability. This has never happened before with a space-capable species. The Vrentok, someone started to say. The Vrentok had weak telepathy, Miranis interrupted. They knew what they were doing. They couldn't control it, but they knew. Humans are completely blind to consciousness. Asking them not to broadcast is like asking us not to breathe. They don't know they're doing it. A crystalline being at the highest tier spoke. Its voice was ancient and heavy. I am Elder Tharun. I was present at the judgment of the Vrentok 3,000 years ago. I voted for their removal. It was necessary then. It may be necessary now. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. Removal? You mean killing us? If you cannot be contained, yes. The law is clear. A psychic hazard of this magnitude cannot be tolerated. But we're not trying to hurt anyone, Sarah's voice cracked. Give us a chance. Help us understand how to fix this. Can you fix it? Tharun asked. Can you shut down your network? Sarah looked at her colleagues. They all shook their heads. No, she admitted. It's decentralized. Built into billions of devices. Even if we wanted to destroy it, we couldn't. Not without destroying our entire civilization. Then you see our problem, Tharun said. You have built something you cannot stop. something that harms others. What choice do we have? Commander Zaleth stood from her seat. There is another option. We could teach them to shield their thoughts. Impossible, said the insect being. Mental shielding takes years of training. It requires natural psychic sensitivity to even understand the concept. Humans have neither the time nor the ability. Then we help them develop the ability, Zaleth insisted. They use technology to create artificial telepathy. Perhaps they can use technology to create artificial shielding. And if they fail? Tharun asked. How long do we wait while billions suffer their broadcast? The chamber erupted in argument. Some species wanted humanity destroyed immediately. Others wanted quarantine, trapping Earth behind a consciousness-dampening field. A few, very few, agreed with Zaleth. Sarah stood there, helpless, while aliens decided the fate of her species. Dr. Miranis turned to her. There is something I need to show the Council. Something I learned while studying humanity. May I access your network? What? Why? Trust me, Sarah nodded. She pulled out her neural interface device and handed it to Miranis. The alien looked at it, then placed it against her forehead. Her body went rigid. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then Miranis began to glow. Not with light, but with something else. Energy. Emotion. The chamber fell silent as every telepathic being present felt it. Miranis was channeling the human network directly, letting the Council experience it without filters. Sarah felt it too through her connection. She felt joy from a wedding in Tokyo, fear from a child taking a test in Brazil, grief from a funeral in Egypt, love from parents watching their baby sleep in Canada, anger from an argument in Russia, hope from a scientist making a discovery in India. All of it at once. Billions of humans living and feeling and thinking and dreaming, and underneath it all, something else. Creativity. Humans imagining things that didn't exist and then building them. Humans making art for no reason except that it was beautiful. Humans telling stories, making music, writing poetry, laughing at jokes. Humans being ridiculous and profound and messy and brilliant. Miranis removed the device. She was shaking. That, she said to the Council, is what you're proposing to destroy. The chamber was silent. Yes, humans are loud, Miranis continued. Yes, they're chaotic. But they're also more alive than any species I've ever studied. They feel everything at maximum intensity because they never had to hide it. They create beauty out of pain. They laugh in the face of death. They love with their entire being. They're messy and irrational and contradictory, but that's because they're real in a way we've forgotten how to be. She looked around at all the Council members. We evolved psychic abilities and we learned control, but what did we lose? When was the last time any of you felt joy like that wedding in Tokyo? When did you last create something just because it made you happy? We learned to be quiet, to be orderly, to be controlled. We learned to survive. But humans, they learned to live. Beautiful words, Tharun said. But they don't solve the problem. They're still causing harm. Then we teach them control without killing what makes them special, Miranis said. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it will take time. But they're worth it. The galaxy needs them. We need them. Even if we don't know it yet. Tharun was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Commander Zaleth, do you believe humanity can learn control? Zaleth stepped forward. Yes, Elder, I do. They built a global telepathic network in less than 2 centuries since we last observed them. They went from not knowing aliens existed to standing here arguing for their survival. They're adaptable. They're clever. They'll find a way, and if they don't, then I will personally lead the containment fleet. But give them a chance, please. Tharun turned to the Council. This requires a vote. All in favor of allowing humanity time to learn control? Lights began to appear throughout the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Sarah watched them count up, her heart pounding. It was close. So close. Finally, Tharun spoke. The measure passes. By a margin of 2 votes, humanity will be given 1 standard year to demonstrate significant progress in consciousness control. Dr. Miranis and Commander Zaleth will oversee the training. If they fail, containment protocols will be enacted. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. A year. They had a year to learn something that took other species their entire childhoods. Thank you, she whispered. Tharun looked at her with ancient eyes. Don't thank us yet, human. You have no idea how hard this will be. Learning to quiet your thoughts, to hide your feelings, to control what you broadcast. It goes against everything your species is. You're asking humans to stop being human. Sarah met his gaze. Then we'll figure out how to do it while still staying ourselves. That's what humans do. We adapt, we survive, we find a way. For the first time, the ancient being made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps you will. I find myself hoping you do. The galaxy could use some noise. 6 months had passed since the council's decision. Sarah Chen stood in what used to be a sports stadium in Beijing, now converted into a massive consciousness training facility. 50,000 humans sat in meditation, their neural interfaces glowing, softly as they practiced mental shielding techniques. Taught by alien instructors, it wasn't going well. Focus on the boundaries of your mind, said Dr. Moranis through the speaker system. Imagine a wall around your thoughts. Keep your feelings inside, Sarah tried. She really did. But every time she built the mental wall, something inside her wanted to tear it down. It felt wrong, lonely, like putting herself in a cage. Around her, others were having the same problem. A woman started crying. A man stood up and walked out, frustrated. Children did better than adults, but even they struggled. Miranis appeared beside Sarah, moving through the crowd. How are you doing? The alien asked. Terrible, Sarah admitted. It feels like trying not to breathe. Every instinct I have fights against it. I know. That's what makes you human. Miranis sighed, a sound like water over rocks. We're not getting anywhere with traditional methods. Human brains aren't built for this, so what do? I don't know. And we're running out of time. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in her apartment, connected to the GCN, feeling the thoughts and emotions of billions of people. It was beautiful and overwhelming and completely natural to her now. Then she had an idea. Computer, she said, pull up all the data on alien mental shielding techniques. Cross-reference with human neural interface technology. Her AI assistant went to work. Hours passed. The sun came up. Sarah's coffee got cold, but slowly a pattern emerged. The aliens were trying to teach humans to be quiet, to suppress their broadcasts, to hide. But what if that was the wrong approach? What if instead of trying to stop broadcasting, humans learned to control what they broadcast? Sarah started coding. She pulled in her old team. They worked for 3 days straight. Dr. Moranis and Commander Zelith watched with confusion, then with growing interest. What are you doing? Zelith asked. Humans can't learn to be quiet, Sarah explained, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. That's not who we are. But we can learn to direct the noise like a radio that broadcasts on different channels. Right now we're screaming on all frequencies at once. But what if we could choose the frequency? Shield the private thoughts, broadcast the ones we want to share? She pulled up a simulation. This is adaptive consciousness filtering. It uses our neural interfaces as volume controls. We can't turn off our thoughts, but we can turn them way down for everyone except who we choose. And the really private stuff? That gets encrypted, filtered through algorithms before it ever reaches the network. Miranis studied the code. You're not using biological shielding at all. You're using technology to do what our minds do naturally. Exactly. We can't evolve psychic abilities in a year, but we can build something that does the same job. Will it work? Zelith asked. Let's find out. They started with volunteers, 1,000 humans all fitted with the new filtering technology. The change was immediate. Their mental signatures became quieter, more controlled, still present, still uniquely human but manageable. Then 10,000. Then 1,000,000. The technology spread through the GCN like wildfire. Humans adapted to it quickly, learning to adjust their mental volume the way they adjusted the volume on their phones. 3 months after Sarah's breakthrough, Commander Zelith stood before the council again. The human frequency has decreased by 70%, she reported. They're still louder than any council species, but within tolerable levels. Sensitive species report significant relief. Only 70%? Someone asked. Why not complete silence? Dr. Moranis stepped forward. Because complete silence would destroy what makes them valuable. The remaining 30% is humans being human, and I propose we not only accept it but embrace it. She activated a display. In the past 6 months, human consciousness has had unexpected effects on the galaxy. Artists from the Quintar have created works influenced by human emotion. Scientists report breakthrough ideas after exposure to human thought patterns. Even Tharun himself admitted to feeling something he called nostalgia for the first time in centuries. What are you suggesting? Elder Tharun asked. I'm suggesting that humans aren't a psychic hazard. They're a psychic resource. Yes, they think differently than us. Yes, they're loud. But maybe we needed some noise. Maybe we got too quiet. The chamber filled with murmurs. It was an outrageous idea, but no one could deny the changes they'd felt. Very well, Tyrone said. Humanity may join the council as provisional members. They will be given full rights in 20 years after we see if they can maintain control. Sarah, watching from Earth, felt tears run down her face. They'd done it. Humanity had a place among the stars. But the real surprise came 2 weeks later. Sarah was working in her lab when every sensor in the building started beeping. Not emergency beeps. Discovery beeps, what is that? She asked her team. It's a response signal, someone said, voice shaking. To our frequency. But it's not from any council species. Where's it coming from? They traced it. The signal originated from a dead system, 12 light years away. A system the council had surveyed centuries ago and found nothing. But it wasn't nothing anymore. Something was waking up there. Commander Zelith's ship arrived at the system 3 days later. What they found changed everything. Cities. Ancient cities built into asteroids and moons, all dormant, all dark, until human consciousness had washed over them like a wake-up call. Now they were lighting up, powering on, and sending signals back. What are they? Zelith asked. Dr. Marana studied the architecture, the technology, the biosigns that were starting to appear. Her voice was shaking when she answered. They're the Vrentok, the species the Council destroyed 3,000 years ago. Except we didn't destroy them, they hid. They shielded themselves so perfectly that they seemed dead. They've been sleeping for millennia, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone like them. Someone loud enough to hear through their shields. Someone who broadcasts consciousness the way they did. On the largest city ship, something stirred. A being that had slept for 3,000 years opened its eyes. It felt the human frequency and recognized it. Kin, family, another species that refused to be quiet. It sent a message, simple and clear, transmitted in the language of consciousness that humans and Vrentok shared. We hear you. We are coming home. Sarah received the message on Earth. She didn't understand all of it, but she understood enough. Humanity wasn't alone in being loud. And the galaxy, which had been silent for so long, was about to get much, much noisier. She smiled. Elder Tharoon had been right about one thing. The galaxy could use some noise. She opened a connection to the GCN, reaching out to every human on Earth and in the colonies. People of Earth, she said. I have news. We're not the only ones. There's another species like us out there. They've been hiding, sleeping, waiting, and we woke them up. The response was immediate. 8.7 billion humans feeling the same thing at once. Curiosity, excitement, hope, and just a little bit of fear. But mostly hope. Because if there were 2 loud species, maybe there were more. Maybe the quiet galaxy had been too quiet for too long. Maybe it was time for consciousness to be heard again, in all its messy, beautiful, chaotic glory. The frequency that had nearly destroyed humanity now became their greatest gift to the universe. Sarah looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrentok were coming. Somewhere out there, maybe others were waking too. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had barely begun to make noise. Let them hear us, she whispered. Let them all hear us. The universe, silent for eons, began to sing. Not with one voice, but with billions. Human voices. Vrentok voices, and maybe, someday even more. The age of quiet was over. The age of consciousness had begun. And at the center of it all, broadcasting with joy and wonder and uncontrolled enthusiasm, was humanity. Loud, messy, impossible humanity. Exactly as they were meant to be. The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the small Earth vessel USS Pioneer cruised silently through an unexplored sector. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes scanning the sensor readings with cautious interest. After 20 years in the United Earth Defense Force, he had developed an instinct for trouble. Right now, that instinct was screaming. Anything unusual on long-range scans, Lieutenant? Miller asked, his voice steady despite his concerns. Lieutenant. Jack Howard, a young man with sharp features and sharper eyes, frowned at his tactical display. Nothing concrete, sir. But there's some strange energy fluctuations about 500,000 kilometers to starboard. Miller nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. The Pioneer wasn't built for combat. As a reconnaissance vessel, its job was to observe, record, and report back. If they encountered anything hostile, their only real option was to run. Communications Officer Green, status report on our transmissions back to Earth? Samantha Green turned from her console, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. All data packets from the past week have been successfully transmitted. Sir, Earth received and acknowledged our last report 6 hours ago. Good. Maintain regular communication protocols but prepare an emergency channel just in case. The bridge fell quiet as everyone continued their work. The Pioneer had been mapping this region for 3 weeks now, farther from Earth than any human vessel had ventured before. Their mission was simple: scout the edges of what humans called the Orion Arm, looking for habitable planets, resources, and any signs of intelligent life. No one expected to actually find that last item so quickly. Captain, Howard's voice cut through the silence. Multiple objects just appeared on our scans. They're big, sir, and they're moving fast, directly toward us. Miller leaned forward. Show me. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying several massive shapes moving in perfect formation. They were sleek, their hulls covered in what looked like overlapping scales of some dark reflective material. The largest was at least 30 times the size of the Pioneer. Are they artificial? Miller asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Lisa Warren, the ship's chief scientist, nodded slowly. Those are ships, Captain. Definitely not natural objects. First contact, someone whispered. Miller straightened his uniform. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations. Communications Broadcast First Contact Protocol Alpha. All languages, all frequencies. Broadcasting, sir, Green confirmed, her fingers flying over her console. Minutes passed with no response. The alien vessels continued their approach now, close enough that details of their strange design were becoming visible. They're scanning us, Howard reported, his voice tense. Very powerful scans. They're cutting right through our shields. Miller frowned. Not the friendliest of greetings. Any response to our broadcasts? Nothing, sir. The captain made a decision. Navigator Martinez, plot us a course out of here. Maximum speed. Let's not assume. His order was cut short as the ship suddenly shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. We're caught in some kind of energy field, Engineer Alan Boyd shouted from the engineering station. Our engines are offline. Weapon systems powering up on the lead vessel, Howard reported, his voice tight with urgency. Miller's mind raced. Green, emergency transmission to Earth now. Send everything we have on these ships and our coordinates. Samantha nodded grimly and began the transmission as the rest of the crew braced for whatever was coming. Message away, sir, but I don't know if... She was interrupted as her console sparked and went dark. They're jamming us. The alien ships now surrounded the Pioneer, dwarfing the human vessel. A strange blue light engulfed them and the ship's systems began shutting down one by one. Captain, they're pulling us toward the largest vessel, Martinez reported, desperately trying to regain control of the navigation systems. Miller stood tall, facing the view screen. All crew, prepare for boarding. This is not a combat situation. I repeat, this is not a combat situation. We are representatives of Earth, and we will act accordingly. As systems failed throughout the ship, emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie red glow. Miller turned to his crew, faces he'd come to know and trust over many missions. Whatever happens next, remember your training. We're making history today. Let's make sure it's the right kind. The ship shuddered again as it was drawn into what appeared to be a massive hangar bay. Through the view screen, they could see strange, armored figures lining up in formation. They look military, Howard observed quietly. Stay calm, Miller ordered. No sudden movements when they come aboard. They didn't have to wait long. A loud hissing sound came from the main airlock, followed by the groan of metal as something forced the doors open despite the lockdown protocols. Tall figures in sleek armor poured onto the ship. They moved with precision that spoke of long experience, securing areas with practiced efficiency. Their helmets concealed any features, but their bodies were clearly humanoid, though taller and more slender than the average human. When they reached the bridge, The crew stood their ground as ordered. The aliens surrounded them, weapons raised. Devices that hummed with an energy none of them recognized. One alien stepped forward, taller than the rest. It removed its helmet, revealing a face that was both familiar and utterly alien. The skin was pale blue and hairless with large, multifaceted eyes that shimmered with an inner light. When it spoke, the sound was like nothing they had ever heard, clicks and whistles that no human throat could produce. A device on the alien's wrist glowed, and suddenly words in rough English filled the bridge. Primitive vessel, you have entered territory claimed by the galactic hegemony. Your species is unknown to us. You will be contained and studied. Captain Miller stepped forward, hands open in a universal gesture of peace. I am Captain Frank Miller, of the United Earth Defense Force vessel USS Pioneer. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. We mean no harm, and would welcome. The alien made a sharp gesture, and Miller found himself unable to speak, held in place by some invisible force. Your cooperation is not requested, the alien said. It is required. The crew was efficiently separated and removed from the bridge. As they were led away, Samantha Green caught the captain's eye and gave a barely perceptible nod. The emergency signal had gotten through. Earth knew they were here. Earth knew what had happened. As they were marched through the massive alien vessel, Dr. Warren made mental notes of everything she saw. Lieutenant Howard cataloged their captors' weapons and tactical formations. Engineer Boyd studied the technology around them with careful eyes. Navigator Martinez mapped their path through the enormous ship. None of them spoke. None of them resisted. But all of them observed. Back on Earth, thousands of light years away, an alarm sounded in the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force. Fleet Admiral Gary Peterson was awakened from a rare moment of sleep. He read the fragmentary message from the Pioneer, saw the images of the alien armada, and closed his eyes briefly. Then he reached for the secure communication panel beside his bed. This is Peterson. Authentication code Alpha Tango 77 Romeo. Initiate Operation Vanguard. This is not a drill. Across Earth's solar system, hidden shipyards suddenly blazed with activity. Vessels that had been constructed in secret over decades began powering up their systems. Crews who had trained for this moment their entire careers rushed to their stations. The aliens who had captured the Pioneer believed they had encountered a primitive species taking its first tentative steps into space. They had no way of knowing that humans never sent their best ships first. They never revealed their true capabilities to the unknown. The Pioneer was just a scout. And now, the fleet was coming. The holding cell was small and bare, with nothing but a hard surface that might generously be called a bed. Jack Howard sat with his back against the wall, eyes closed, but mind racing. It had been 3 days since their capture, based on his internal clock. 3 days of separation from his crew, periodic interrogations, and careful observation. The aliens, who called themselves the Varaxians, clearly thought humans were primitive. Jack intended to let them keep thinking that. The door to his cell slid open with a soft hiss. 2 Varaxian guards entered, their scaled armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Between them stood a slender figure in what appeared to be a scientific outfit rather than military gear. Up, one guard ordered through his translation device. The examiner has questions. Jack stood slowly, making a show of stiffness and fear. He followed them through a series of corridors that he carefully memorized, adding to his mental map of the station. They entered a room filled with strange equipment, screens displaying what looked like human biological data. Sit, the scientist said, gesturing to a chair in the center of the room. Jack complied, noting the restraints on the armrests that weren't activated. They still didn't consider him a threat. I am Chief Examiner Velkorian, the alien said. You will answer my questions truthfully. Jack nodded meekly. Yes, sir. I'm just a tactical officer. I don't know much. The examiner made a clicking sound that might have been amusement. Your vessel. It was a military craft, yes? Yes, sir, but just a small scouting ship. And how many such vessels does your Earth possess? Jack paused, pretending to be nervous. I'm not sure of the exact number, maybe 30. We're still developing our space fleet. Velkorian made a note on a floating screen. Your weapon systems were minimal. Yes, sir. Just defensive measures. We're peaceful explorers. And yet you have a military rank. Jack shrugged. Earth combines its exploration and defense forces. It's more efficient for a small operation like ours. The questioning continued. For hours, Jack fed the aliens a careful mixture of truth, lies, and misunderstandings. Yes, Earth had faster-than-light capabilities, but only recently developed. Yes, they had weapon systems, but nothing that could threaten the mighty hegemony. No, they had no allies among the stars. They had only just begun exploring beyond their solar system. All the while, Jack absorbed every detail about his captors. The hierarchy, the technology, the guards' rotation patterns. Everything could be useful. 2 levels below, Dr. Lisa Warren was having a very different experience. The aliens were fascinated by human biology, particularly the adaptability that seemed unique among species they had encountered. Your cellular regeneration rate is remarkable, said the alien scientist, studying her latest test results. And your neural plasticity suggests an unusual capacity for learning. Lisa said nothing, watching as they analyzed blood samples and tissue regeneration rates. They spoke freely around her, clearly not considering that she might understand their discussions. But Lisa had always had a gift for languages, and after days of listening to their translator devices, she was beginning to recognize patterns in their natural speech. The Command Council meeting is scheduled for the next cycle, one scientist said to another. Admiral Zekthar will present findings on the human vessel. Will they decide on the exploration mission to the human homeworld? It seems likely. A small fleet only. The humans pose no significant threat. Lisa kept her expression neutral, but her mind was working rapidly. A planned expedition to Earth. This was critical information that needed to get back home. Somehow. Anywhere. Another section of the station engineer Alan Boyd was making progress of his own. Left alone in his cell with what the aliens considered primitive tools to keep him occupied, apparently, they thought humans needed constant stimulation. Boyd had been systematically examining the cell's systems. The Varaxians used a crystalline technology for their control systems, something similar to theories Earth scientists had been developing. Boyd had spent his life understanding how things worked, and alien technology, while advanced, still followed logical principles. He had discovered a small access panel near the waste reclamation unit. The aliens likely never imagined a primitive human would recognize it as a control node, let alone understand how to manipulate it. Boyd carefully inserted a modified tool into the panel. If his calculations were correct, this should create a temporary fluctuation in the security field. Not enough to escape, but enough to send a pulse through the system that navigator Amy Martinez might detect from her cell. It was how they had planned to communicate during their last moments together on the Pioneer, simple pulses in patterns that only the crew would recognize as meaningful. In the command center of the station, Admiral Zekthar reviewed the reports on the human captives with growing satisfaction. These creatures were physically resilient, but technologically primitive. Their ship had offered little resistance, and their weapon systems were almost laughable to the hegemony standards. The human homeworld, Earth they call it, appears to be ripe for expansion, he said to his officers. Their technology suggests they've only recently achieved interstellar travel. They will have no defense against even a modest fleet. A junior officer approached with a data crystal. Admiral, the xenobiologist Dr. Thazalok requests your attention on a matter regarding the humans. Zekthar took the crystal with annoyance. Another concern from our cautious doctor? What is it this time? He reviewed the data quickly, his annoyance growing. Dr. Thazalok had prepared a lengthy analysis suggesting that human cognitive patterns showed unusual adaptability and problem-solving capabilities that might indicate hidden potential. Theoretical concerns, Zekthar dismissed, handing the crystal back. The fact remains their vessel fell to us within moments. Prepare a briefing for the Hegemony Council. I will recommend a small fleet be dispatched to this Earth to establish our dominance and begin the assimilation process. Yes, Admiral, the officer acknowledged, though his expression betrayed a hint of concern. Dr. Thazalak was known for his insight into new species. Back on Earth, activity had reached a fever pitch. The fragmentary distress call from the Pioneer had triggered humanity's long-prepared contingency plans. Deep within a mountain complex in North America, Fleet Admiral Gary Peterson stood before a room filled with ship commanders, each face grim with determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," Peterson began, his voice echoing in the silent chamber, "for decades, we have prepared for this moment. First contact has occurred, but not as we hoped. The Pioneer has been taken by what appears to be a hostile force, calling itself the Galactic Hegemony." He activated a holographic display showing the alien vessels captured in the Pioneer's final transmission. "Captain Miller and his crew are prisoners, but they are also our eyes behind enemy lines. We believe they're still alive, and we intend to keep them that way." Peterson touched a control, and the display changed to show a massive fleet of ships. Earth. Ships hidden throughout the solar system. Operation Vanguard is now active. The UEDF flagship Retribution will lead the first wave. Captain Diane Foster, you have tactical command of the rescue operation. A tall woman with dark skin and determined eyes stood. "Yes, Admiral. The Retribution is ready. We can deploy within 12 hours. Good. Your mission is twofold. Rescue our people and make it abundantly clear to this hegemony that humanity is not to be trifled with." Peterson looked around the room. "We have hidden our true capabilities for precisely this scenario. These aliens believe they've captured a primitive scout ship. They have no idea what's coming for them." As the meeting concluded, Peterson moved to a private communication terminal. A message was waiting. The Pioneer's communication officer, Samantha Green, had managed to establish a quantum entanglement connection through a hidden device the aliens had not detected. The message was brief but crucial. "Hegemony planning Earth expedition. Crew gathering intel. Send help, but be warned, they are numerous." Peterson allowed himself a small smile. Miller and his crew were doing exactly what they had been trained to do. Now it was time for Earth to do its part. The hegemony had no idea they had just kicked a hornet's nest. They thought they had captured a simple scout vessel. They were about to learn it was only the beginning. Deep within Earth's orbit, hidden behind the moon, a massive ship floated silently in space. The UEDF Retribution was unlike anything humans had publicly acknowledged building. At nearly 2 kilometers long, its sleek hull was covered with advanced armor that absorbed light rather than reflected it, making it almost invisible to standard sensors. On the bridge, Captain Diane Foster stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as her crew prepared for humanity's first interstellar war mission. She was 45 years old, with short, gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen enough combat on Earth to know what was coming. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the weight of responsibility she carried. Her second-in-command, Commander Paul Wilson, responded promptly. "All systems green, Captain. The fleet is reporting ready status, 120 ships awaiting your command." Foster nodded. 120 warships that the rest of humanity didn't know existed. For decades, Earth had been building, in secret, preparing for this exact scenario. Resources that could have gone to solving problems on Earth had instead been funneled into creating a fleet capable of defending the planet from exactly the kind of threat they now faced. "Communications, patch me through to Admiral Peterson." A moment later, the Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Foster, I take it you're ready to proceed." "Yes, sir. The fleet is prepared to move out on your order." Peterson's expression was grim. "We've received additional communications from the Pioneer crew. The alien force, this galactic hegemony, is preparing to send ships to Earth. We need to intercept them before they reach our solar system and demonstrate that humanity is not the easy target they believe us to be." "Understood, sir. And the rescue operation proceeds as planned. Your primary mission is to recover our people. Your secondary mission is to make it abundantly clear that attacking Earth would be a costly mistake." Foster allowed herself a small smile. That should not be difficult, sir. Good hunting, Captain. Earth is counting on you. The screen went dark and Foster turned to her crew. You heard the Admiral. Let's go get our people back. Navigation, set course for the coordinates provided by the Pioneer. Weapons. Bring all systems online but keep them powered down until my command. We want to surprise them. As orders echoed. Across the bridge, Foster sat in her command chair and touched a control panel. All ships, this is Captain Foster. Today we make history. Today humanity shows the galaxy that we will not be conquered. We will not be subjugated. And we will never abandon our own. Prepare for quantum displacement jump in 5 minutes. Foster out. Throughout the massive ship, crew members moved with purpose. Unlike the aliens who had captured the Pioneer, humans had been preparing for war for thousands of years. They knew how to fight, how to adapt, and most importantly, how to win against superior forces. And they had one more advantage. The aliens had no idea what was coming. On the hegemony station, Captain Frank Miller felt the slight vibration in his cell wall. 4 short pulses, then 2 long ones. The signal from Boyd had worked. The crew was communicating. Miller placed his hand against the wall and tapped back, confirming he had received the message. Their plan was moving forward. After days of careful observation and information gathering, it was time to act. The door to his cell slid open, and 2 guards entered. The Admiral wishes to speak with you, one said through its translator. Miller nodded and stood, allowing himself to be led through the station's corridors. This was unexpected, but potentially useful. Any direct contact with the alien leadership was an opportunity to gather more intelligence. They brought him to a large chamber dominated by viewing screens and what appeared to be a 3-dimensional map of the nearby sector of space. Admiral Zekthar stood at the center, his tall, blue-skinned form imposing even from across the room. Human, the Admiral said as Miller was brought before him. I wish to inform you personally that we have dispatched vessels to your homeworld. Soon your species will join the hegemony as a subject race. Miller kept his expression neutral. The people of Earth are peaceful, Admiral. There's no need for military action. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Your deception is unnecessary. We have analyzed your vessel and found it to be of primitive design. Your weapons systems are basic. Your homeworld will have no effective defense against even our smallest warships. Miller allowed himself to look worried. Admiral, please. There are billions of innocent people on Earth. They will be treated fairly as long as they accept hegemony rule, Zekthar said dismissively. Your species has potential as a labor force. Those who resist will be dealt with appropriately. As the Admiral spoke, Miller noticed something on one of the screens behind him. A sensor reading showing unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. His heart raced. Could it be? Return him to his cell, Zekthar ordered. We will collect the rest of your crew when the subjugation of your world begins. You will witness the beginning of a new era for your species. As the guards led Miller away, he fought to keep the hope from showing on his face. Those energy signatures could only mean one thing. Earth had received their message. The fleet was coming. In her laboratory cell, Dr. Lisa Warren had made a discovery. The sample of her blood the aliens had taken was reacting strangely with their testing equipment. Something about human biology was confusing their sensors. She watched as the alien scientists argued among themselves, their clicks and whistles becoming more agitated. Their translation devices were off, but Lisa had learned enough of their language to understand the basics. They were concerned about human immune systems, specifically how quickly they adapted to new pathogens. One scientist seemed particularly worried that humans might be resistant to their standard control methods. A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. The scientists rushed to a communication panel, and Lisa strained to hear their conversation. Her blood ran cold at what she managed to translate. Multiple unknown vessels and massive energy signatures not in the database. The Earth fleet had arrived. In the engineering section, Alan Boyd felt the change in the station's power systems immediately. Emergency protocols were activating, drawing power from non-essential systems, including the security fields in the Yaum detention area. This was their chance. He quickly accessed the panel he had been secretly modifying and sent a surge through the system, overloading the already strained security network. His cell door's lock failed with a soft click. Boyd pushed it open carefully, checking for guards. The corridor was empty, the aliens too busy responding to whatever emergency had triggered the alarms. He moved quickly to the next cell, where he knew Navigator Amy Martinez was being held. Within minutes, he had her door open as well. "What's happening?" she whispered as they moved through the corridor. "I'm not sure," Boyd replied, "but I think our ride is here." On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Foster watched as the fleet emerged from quantum displacement, appearing seemingly out of nowhere just outside the Hegemony Station's sensor range. "All ships accounted for, Captain," reported her tactical officer. "No detection from enemy forces yet." Foster nodded. "Good. Deploy Scout Group Alpha to locate the Pioneer crew. Battle Groups 1 through 5, move into Formation Delta. We'll advance slowly and give them time to notice us." Her lips curved into a slight smile. "Let's make sure they get a good look at what they're dealing with before we make our demands." As the Earth fleet moved into position, sensors began picking up increased activity from the Hegemony Station and the small number of ships docked there. "They've spotted us, Captain," the tactical officer reported. "They're powering up weapons and shields." "Hold position," Foster ordered. "Open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves." The communication officer worked his console. "Channel open, Captain." Foster stood tall, her voice clear and commanding. "Attention Galactic Hegemony Forces. This is Captain Diane Foster of the United Earth Defense Force flagship Retribution. You are holding Earth citizens against their will. Return them immediately, or we will take them back by force." For several long moments, there was silence. Then a response came through, the alien voice tinged with what sounded like disbelief. "Impossible. The human world does not possess this level of technology." Foster's smile grew colder. "You captured a reconnaissance vessel, Admiral. That was your first mistake. Preparing to attack Earth would have been your last. You have 1 hour to return our people. After that, we will retrieve them ourselves." As she ended the transmission, Foster turned to her tactical officer. "Show them what we're capable of. Target that small moon with the graviton cannon. Low power." "Yes, Captain." Outside, a beam of concentrated energy shot from the Retribution, striking a small, uninhabited moon in the distance. The celestial body shuddered, then broke apart into perfectly even sections that slowly drifted away from each other. "Message sent," Foster said quietly. "Now we wait." On the Hegemony Station, Admiral Zekthar stared at the sensor readings in stunned silence. The human fleet was larger and more powerful than anything they had anticipated. And that weapon, nothing in the Hegemony arsenal could match it. For the first time in his long career, the Admiral felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Admiral Zekthar paced the command center, his composure cracking with each new report. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was technologically advanced beyond what should have been possible for a species that had only recently achieved interstellar travel. "How did we miss this?" he demanded, slamming his fist onto a control panel. "Their reconnaissance vessel showed nothing of this capability." His second-in-command, a veteran officer named Krelvos, spoke carefully. "Admiral, it appears the humans deliberately sent an outdated vessel as their first contact ship. They were testing us." The Admiral hissed in anger. On the main display, the human fleet held position in perfect formation, 120 warships, each bristling with weapons the Hegemony sensors couldn't even properly classify, and at the center their flagship, a vessel nearly as large as a Hegemony cruiser. "Status of our defense fleet?" Zekthar asked. "The 7th Battle Group is 16 hours away at maximum speed," Krelvos reported. "We currently have only 3 patrol vessels and the station's defenses." The Admiral closed his multifaceted eyes briefly. 3 patrol ships against that human armada was suicide. But he had his pride, his position, his duty to the Hegemony. "Prepare battle stations. We will not surrender to a species we only discovered days ago." As his officers rushed to comply, a junior communications officer approached nervously. "Admiral, we've lost contact with detention level 4. Security reports. The human prisoners are escaping." Jack Howard moved silently through the corridor, 2 stolen Varaxian energy weapons tucked into his belt. Behind him followed Samantha Green and 3 other crew members they had managed to free. "Status?" he whispered into a small communication device Boyd had assembled from parts of their cell control panels. Boyd's voice came through softly. "We've secured access to level 3. Martinez has located what looks like a shuttle bay. Still working on finding the captain." "Good. Dr. Warren, I'm accessing their data networks now," Warren's voice replied. "Their systems are in chaos. The Earth fleet has them in complete disarray." Jack smiled grimly. "Keep moving. Remember, we need to secure a communication hub. Captain Miller needs to speak directly with our fleet." They rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of Varaxian guards. Without hesitation, Jack dropped to one knee and fired. The alien weapon discharged with surprising force, sending a pulse of energy that knocked the first guard off his feet. The humans moved with practiced efficiency. They had spent years training for combat situations, even the scientists among them. The Varaxians, used to dealing with already subjugated species, weren't prepared for the aggressive counterattack. Within moments, the guards were down, and the humans were moving again, deeper into the station. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Foster watched the tactical display with narrowed eyes. "Any response to our message?" "Nothing official," her communications officer replied. "But we're picking up increased chatter and energy readings. They're mobilizing their defenses." Foster nodded. "As expected. They're too proud to give in without at least a token resistance." She turned to her tactical officer. "Status of Scout Group Alpha?" "They've breached the station's outer defenses. No resistance yet. I think we caught them completely by surprise." "Good." Foster stood and straightened her uniform. "Launch fighters, I want a full perimeter around that station. If any of their ships try to escape, disable them, but do not destroy unless absolutely necessary." She walked to the main viewport, watching as smaller craft launched from the Earth vessels streaking toward the hegemony station. She had hoped the aliens would see reason and return the Pioneer crew peacefully, but she had been prepared for this outcome. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from inside the station. It's using Pioneer communication protocols." Foster spun around. "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing a human face. "Lieutenant." Howard, looking bruised but determined. "Retribution, this is Lieutenant Howard of the USS Pioneer. We've broken out and secured a communication hub. Captain Miller is leading another group to the main hangar." "Lieutenant," Foster replied, relief evident in her voice. "Good to see you alive. What's your situation?" "We're scattered throughout the station. 22 of our 24 crew accounted for. The aliens are in disarray, but they're starting to organize a response. We need extraction, and soon." "Understood. We have teams incoming. Hold your position and—" Howard suddenly looked off screen, his expression changing. "They've found us. We need to move. Sending you station schematics now. Miller is headed for Hangar Bay 3. The transmission cut off abruptly. Foster turned to her crew. "You heard him. Direct the extraction teams to Hangar Bay 3 and get me those schematics." Frank Miller pressed his back against the wall, peering around the corner toward the hangar bay entrance. 2 guards stood watch, unaware of the humans approaching from behind. "On 3, he whispered to the small group with him. 1, 2, 3. They rushed forward, taking down the guards before they could sound an alarm. Miller quickly accessed the door controls, thanking the universe that Dr. Warren had decoded enough of the alien control systems to give them access. The hangar bay door slid open, revealing a large chamber filled with various craft. Miller recognized them as short-range shuttles perfect for their needs. "Boyd," he called softly, "can you fly one of these things?" The engineer examined the nearest shuttle with professional interest. "The controls are different, but the principles should be similar. Get me inside and I'll figure it out." As they moved toward the shuttle, a loud alarm blared throughout the hangar. Doors at the far end slid open and a squad of heavily armed Varaxians poured through. Take cover, Miller shouted, diving behind a cargo container as energy blasts scorched the air around them. In the command center, Admiral Zek Thar watched with growing fury as reports of human resistance came in from all over the station. How had they coordinated so effectively? How had they overwhelmed his trained guards? Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the human vessels have launched fighters. They're surrounding the station. Zek Thar knew he was out of options. The reinforcements were too far away, and his current forces were no match for the human fleet. But he would not surrender, not personally. Prepare my shuttle, he ordered, and send all available forces to Hangar Bay 3. The human captain is trying to escape with his crew. I will deal with him myself. In Earth orbit, Fleet Admiral Peterson watched the live feed from the Retribution with grim satisfaction. The operation was proceeding as planned. The hegemony forces were outmatched and the rescue teams were already on their way to recover the Pioneer crew. But Peterson knew this was just the beginning. The galactic hegemony was vast, according to the intelligence they had gathered. This confrontation was a small skirmish compared to what might come if the aliens decided to commit their full forces against Earth. He touched a communication panel. Captain Foster, status update. Foster's voice came through clearly. Extraction. In progress, Admiral. Minimal resistance so far. The hegemony forces appear to be in disarray. Good. Remember, we want to demonstrate our capability without unnecessary destruction. This is about rescuing our people and establishing a clear boundary. We don't want a prolonged conflict if it can be avoided. Understood, sir. Though from what we're seeing, they don't seem like the type to back down easily. Peterson frowned. Then make sure they understand the cost of continuing this fight. You have authorization to use whatever force is necessary to bring our people home. As the communication ended, Peterson looked out at the stars visible from his office window. Humanity had hoped for peaceful first contact, had prepared for it for generations. But they had also prepared for this outcome, a hostile alien force that saw them as easy prey. The hegemony was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humans. In Hangar Bay 3, the firefight intensified. Miller and his crew had taken cover behind various cargo containers and equipment, returning fire whenever possible. Boyd and Martinez had reached the shuttle and were working frantically to get its systems online. Captain, Boyd called out, I've got it. Systems are powering up. Miller nodded, turning to the rest of his crew. Fall back to the shuttle, cover each other. As they began their fighting retreat, a new group of Varaxians entered the hangar, led by a familiar blue-skinned figure. Admiral Zek Thar had arrived. His tall form unmistakable even from a distance. He carried what appeared to be a ceremonial weapon, its surface glowing with energy. Miller, the Admiral's voice boomed across the hangar. You will not escape. Your fleet cannot save you. Miller turned to his crew. Get to the shuttle, I'll handle this. The captain stepped out from behind cover, his stolen Varaxian weapon trained on the Admiral. It's over, Zek Thar. Look around you. Your station is compromised. Your forces outmatched. Earth is not what you thought it was. The Admiral's multifaceted eyes narrowed. This changes nothing. The hegemony spans thousands of worlds. Your fleet is impressive, but it cannot stand against our full might. Miller smiled coldly. That's where you're wrong. What you're seeing out there, that's just the beginning. Earth has been preparing for this moment for generations. As they faced off, a loud explosion rocked the far side of the hangar. Through the smoke, the Earth extraction team moved with precision and discipline that startled the Varaxian guards. Their armor was unlike anything the aliens had seen before, lightweight but seemingly impervious to energy weapons, with built-in systems that adapted to the aliens' attack patterns in real time. Captain Miller, called the team leader, a woman whose armor bore command insignia. I'm Major Kelly Wright. We're here to bring you home. Miller nodded, still keeping his weapon trained on Admiral Zek Thar. Perfect timing, Major. We were just discussing the future of human hegemony relations. The extraction team quickly secured the area, forming a protective circle around the Pioneer crew members. Boyd had the alien shuttle powered up, its engines humming with energy. Admiral Zekthar watched with growing rage as his guards fell back under the relentless advance of the human soldiers. "This is not over, Miller," he hissed. "The hegemony will not tolerate this insult. We will bring our full might against your world." Miller lowered his weapon slightly. "That would be a mistake, Admiral. What you're seeing is just a small fraction of Earth's defensive capability. We've been preparing for this moment for generations, not because we wanted war, but because we expected it." Before the Admiral could respond, the station shook violently. Emergency alarms blared throughout the hangar. Major Wright touched her helmet. "Captain, we need to move now. The Retribution has disabled the station's main weapons and propulsion systems. This place is going to lose gravity and life support soon." Miller nodded, then turned back to Zekthar. "You have a choice, Admiral. You can continue this fight and lose more of your people, or you can recognize that humans aren't the easy conquest you thought we would be." For a moment, the Admiral seemed ready to attack despite the overwhelming odds. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. "This confrontation is postponed, human. But the Hegemony Council will hear of this, and they will not be as reasonable as I am." Miller backed toward the extraction team. "Tell your council that Earth is open to peaceful relations, but we will not be subjugated. Remember what you saw here today." As the humans boarded the shuttles, both their own and the commandeered alien craft, Admiral Zekthar watched with burning eyes. His career was likely over after this failure, but he had learned something valuable about these humans. They were not what the hegemony was used to dealing with. They were something new and dangerous. The shuttle streaked away from the disabled hegemony station, escorted by Earth fighter craft. Inside the lead shuttle, Captain Miller sat beside Major E. Wright, watching through a viewport as they approached the Earth fleet. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Wright said, nodding toward the massive ships. Miller nodded, still processing the scale of what he was seeing. "All this time, I knew Earth was preparing, but this Operation Vanguard has been in development for 50 years, Wright explained. "Ever since our first deep space probes detected alien transmissions, we hoped for peace but prepared for war." As they approached the Retribution, Miller was struck by its size and design. Unlike the bulky hegemony vessels, Earth ships were sleek and angular, designed for speed and maneuverability as well as firepower. "Captain Foster is waiting to debrief you," Wright continued. "Your crew performed exceptionally, sir. The intelligence you gathered will be invaluable." Miller smiled tiredly. "They're the best, each one of them." The shuttle docked smoothly in one of the Retribution's massive hangar bays. As the Pioneer crew disembarked, they were greeted by medical teams and an honor guard. At the center stood Captain Diane Foster, her uniform crisp and her expression respectful. "Captain Miller," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome aboard the Retribution. Earth has been waiting for your return." Miller shook her hand firmly. "Thank you, Captain. I see Earth has been busy while we were away." Foster smiled. "Very busy, and thanks to the data your communications officer managed to transmit, we'll be even better prepared for what comes next." 3 days later, a formal meeting took place aboard the Retribution. The hegemony had sent representatives, not Admiral Zekthar, who had been recalled, but a diplomatic team led by a senior member of their council. The human delegation included Captains Miller and Foster, Fleet Admiral Peterson, who had arrived from Earth, and Dr. Lisa Warren, whose insights into hegemony biology and technology had proven invaluable. The alien diplomat, who introduced himself as High Counselor Venzara, was clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "The Hegemony Council has reviewed the events at Outpost 7, he began formally. "While we maintain that your vessel violated our sovereign territory, we acknowledge that certain misunderstandings occurred." Admiral Peterson nodded politely. "Misunderstandings indeed, such as your assumption that humans would be an easy conquest." The counselor's blue skin darkened slightly. "The hegemony does not seek conquest, merely expansion and incorporation of new species into our collective. Without their consent," Miller added quietly. Venzara ignored the comment. "We propose a mutual recognition of territories. The hegemony will acknowledge Earth and its immediate stellar neighbors as sovereign human space. In return, Humans will respect hegemony boundaries. Peterson exchanged glances with Foster and Miller before responding. That's a starting point. But there are other matters to discuss, specifically the treatment of our reconnaissance crew and the threatened invasion of our homeworld. Unfortunate misunderstandings, the counselor repeated stiffly. Dr. Warren spoke up. While at your facility, I noticed several species serving the hegemony under what appeared to be coercive conditions. Is forced servitude standard hegemony policy? The counselor's multifaceted eyes narrowed. The internal affairs of the hegemony are not open for discussion. They are when they might affect humans, Foster said firmly. We're not interested in becoming another subjugated species in your empire. Benzara stood straighter. The hegemony spans thousands of worlds across multiple spiral arms. Your impressive fleet is just that. Impressive, but limited. Do not overestimate your position. Admiral Peterson smiled coldly. Counselor, I think the lesson of the past week is that you should not underestimate ours. The fleet you encountered represents only a fraction of Earth's defensive capabilities. We developed them in secret precisely because we anticipated meeting species like yours. The negotiations continued for hours, with neither side willing to give much ground. By the end, a tentative agreement was reached. A neutral zone would be established between Earth and hegemony space, with neither side permitted to establish military outposts within it. As the alien delegation prepared to depart, Counselor Benzara approached Miller privately. Your species is unusual, Captain. Most newly discovered races are eager to join the hegemony for protection and technological benefits. Miller looked the alien directly in his strange eyes. Humans prefer to stand on their own, Counselor, and we don't respond well to threats. So, we have learned, the counselor replied. But remember this, you have surprised the hegemony once. It will not happen again. 1 month later, Earth had established a permanent military outpost at the edge of the neutral zone. The newly constructed frontier station, commanded by Captain Foster, housed a rotating contingent of Earth's most advanced ships and served as a listening post for any hegemony activities. In her office overlooking the vast docking bay, Foster met with Dr. Warren, who had been appointed as Earth's chief xenobiologist. On her desk sat a report detailing communications from several species within hegemony space, species that had reached out secretly to Earth after news of the confrontation had spread. It seems we've become a symbol, Foster said, scanning the report. These species see us as potential liberators. Warren nodded. The hegemony has ruled through technological superiority for centuries. We're the first species they've encountered that matched or exceeded their capabilities right from first contact. Thanks to our paranoia and secrecy, Foster said with a slight smile. Thanks to our preparation, Warren corrected. And it's only the beginning. The data we gathered from their station has already led to significant advancements in our own technology. Foster looked out at the stars visible through the large viewport. They'll be watching us, testing our resolve. And we'll be ready, Warren replied confidently. On a secure channel, Foster's communication panel chimed. She activated it to see Admiral Peterson's face. Captain, he said without preamble, the Second Fleet has reached its destination. Outposts are being established in 7 new star systems beyond hegemony scanning range. Foster nodded. Any response from our new friends? None yet. But our message was clear. Humanity is not just arriving on the galactic stage, we're changing the play. The hegemony thought they captured a simple reconnaissance vessel. Instead, they woke a sleeping giant. As the communication ended, Foster turned back to the viewport. Out there, among the countless stars, a new chapter in human history was being written. The galactic hegemony had thought they found an easy conquest. Instead, they had found humanity, adaptable, resourceful, and ready for whatever the universe might throw at them. The fleet had arrived, and it was here to stay.